I just recorded a phenomenal episode with somebody that I really, really connected with on a lot of similar values, viewpoints on health and nutrition and all of the things. And even better, Lauren Hubert is a MSRD registered dietitian and weight loss expert behind her online private practice, The Sorority Nutritionist. So go check it out if you're even thinking about it. But we dove into a ton of information in this episode about people focusing on the wrong health habits, how to work away from having cravings, 5 things to know when eating well. I mean, we talked about diets and fads. We talked about how we can avoid weekend guilt. We talked about all things, why we don't need to get away from condiments. We can actually still use ketchup, mustard, all of the things, and so much more about nutrition and how to have a well-balanced diet, so to speak, right? And remember, all of this information coming from a registered dietitian, but smarter decision is to actually look at your macros and look at your weight, of course. So know that all of this information was to just take with a grain of salt. But really, truly, if I was preaching any sort of health and wellness tips to anybody, it would be in line with this episode, okay? So Lauren is known for helping women learn how to eat for sustainable fat loss in a world where fad diets and contradicting information on the internet is always making us believe we need to be restrictive and miserable to lose weight or maintain. She is disrupting the weight loss space by teaching women how to eat and approach weight loss with a simple, flexible, and actually enjoyable approach. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. We have 2 Call Sid write-ins from our listeners, from you guys. So I answer those right away at the end. And I am so hyped for you to learn something. So grab a pen and paper and let's get into it. Laura is here. She's on the mic. I'm so excited. This is such a fun episode because it's a passion for me too. And to talk to somebody who's just as passionate, if not probably more because you got your master's in it and I did not, about food and health and fitness and honestly helping you guys. Like you have a podcast too, and you also do it for your everyday job. But we just do it in different areas. Like I'm at a gym in fitness and helping people and doing all of that and coaching. And Laura's got her podcast and her company and she's going to talk about it. But will you introduce yourself? Because I gave you a little blurb before this, but give the people a little elevator pitch.
Yes. So I am a registered dietitian, but that is like the not even fun part about me. The fun part about what I do and who I am is the fact that I really am the people that I serve. And I know that sounds really corny, but my whole story began when I gained 20 pounds in college. I got so off track from where, I felt my best. And I already was struggling with confidence, but then you go to college, I went to Florida State. It's like so aesthetic heavy and, I didn't feel my best. And that really put me down this spiral of dieting that turned into disordered eating, that turned into an absolute food obsession. And yes, I lost the weight. I lost 30 pounds, even though I gained 20, but I couldn't keep the weight off. I messed up my metabolism, just the mental health piece that went with it was not as positive too. So really it was through this experience that honestly inspired me to become a dietitian. My obsession with food turned into my obsession with helping women lose weight the proper way. So that's really what I do now. My private practice is known as the Sorority Nutritionist. I have a podcast. I, coach women in various ways. And whether it's like through my free content or a paid service, I just want to help the world really understand how to lose weight the proper way. Because there's, as I know you would totally agree, Sydney, there is so much contradicting and bullshit information when it comes to weight loss on the internet. And truthfully, some of it is dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
So we want to put that to an end today.
Yes, we're putting it in today. We're putting it in a sock in it right now, everybody. So I am so excited that you're here. Like, not only because you've got your specialty, but it's something we're both passionate about. And it's like when Laura we had connected and I had looked at her content just to be like, where can we talk about like what is going to hit home with our people the most, like both of our people, groups of people. And every single point that you were hitting on, I was like, oh my God, finally I align with the viewpoints of somebody, because it's crazy. Even out there, people with platforms that are registered dietitians, which I would love you to compare and talk about the difference in a dietitian and a nutritionist, are sharing information that is not accurate and is definitely not a blanket statement. It might be okay for someone to hear, but it's not okay for everyone to hear.
Yeah, I take the word registered dietitian really seriously, not just because I spent a ton of money and a ton of time getting that damn degree, but I wish also more people out there valued registered dietitians, because I'm not here to say other people who aren't dietitians aren't talented, aren't knowledgeable. Some of the most knowledgeable people on nutrition that taught me everything I knew in college, they're not dietitians. They have other specialties and certifications, but why I am passionate about the RD degree and the credential is the fact that it's just an easy way to know if someone really knows what they're talking about. But I also really like to empower people. Like, don't just trust someone because they have a degree or because they say they know something. Like, you also need the background of like, okay, who have they worked with? Where did they get their education? What was their training like? And what is their reputation like? And I think a degree is great, but also it's the impact you make on people because of non-degree characteristics someone has, like your ability to relate to someone, your ability to read the room of, you might give this recommendation to a client, but this client is a mom in her 40s. She doesn't have a lot of time. So it's like, you have to customize all of that. Anyway, I could talk about it for days, but yeah, I love the RD degree, but I also do think, you have to kind of be conscious and very cautious about who you trust on social media for advice.
And that's where people are looking for their information. So I'm excited for this episode because it's like, you can't help it. Like you got to look, and we're all curious of learning about new things. I learn a ton on the internet. I really do, but you have to be careful and take things with a grain of salt. I just wanted to start the episode with that, but I want to jump in because I feel like some of the content that I loved of yours was talking about like also things that are hidden in our diet that we might not see. There's two parts to this. It's like, one, can we flavor our food is like the sentence I keep going back to, but also I love your posts about like Starbucks and how to make it smarter. Maybe we start with the Starbucks piece because I think it's a really good analogy to other things and how we can still have everything we want in our diet, but just adjust it to be a little bit smarter for our larger picture goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, this whole idea of Starbucks came from the fact when I would look up nutrition information for my clients who were having like 2 caramel frappuccinos a day, or, even myself on my Starbucks journey, because I honestly make these drinks because I literally love Starbucks and coffee and like getting food out like that. So it becomes really wild when you have nutrition awareness, and I say calorie awareness. You realize what's really in your food, and you pair that with just the general knowledge around nutrition. And, do you want to be having 60 grams of sugar for your coffee in the morning? It's not really coffee. It's really like a donut. It's really like having cake in the morning. And I love those foods. I crave, sweet treats. I'm the biggest sweet tooth woman in the world. Like my husband would tell you that, but, knowledge is power. That's what I always say. So, in life, we always talk about being like 1% better. Like in fitness, I'm sure you say that all the time. Like, how can you be 1% better today? How can you like almost like one up yourself in a way? And I think with these swaps, instead of just cutting it out, what if you just did half the amount of pumps? What if you made a slight modification? Instead of getting a venti, you got a grande or a tall at Starbucks.
Yes.
And that's really where these swaps came from. And I think it's not just even Starbucks. It can be applied to any food that you are trying to fit into your diet, that instead of that gut reaction of just cutting it out that diet culture teaches us, it's like, what if perhaps we just made it slightly healthier? And by the way, you could still enjoy it. You could still absolutely enjoy it. Like sometimes I think, you almost don't even realize how enjoyable food could be, even when you make these swaps, because you think like you're cutting something out, but like you're not. You actually get to enjoy it. And, perhaps it isn't as sweet, but you could also add in like sugar-free sweeteners to it, and that could do the job too.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that. And I love you talking to that because even I did a swap. I used to do a lot of like lattes with a lot of like extra pumps, like Breve and like whipped cream. And do I get those on holidays? Absolutely. When I'm feeling like cozy and it's kind of like a memory with my grandma and myself and all of those things, but it's not something I need to be consuming like, 400 plus calories in the morning, first thing, no nutritious value, not going to fill you up. I would love to just like start bare bones of like, why should we be avoiding so much sugar in the morning if we're trying to get towards maybe like a better, more well-rounded diet?
For context for everyone listening to this, I am a registered dietitian. Of course, I care about health. When people sometimes say like, you don't care about health, I'm like, my master's was in clinical nutrition. I care a lot about health. I worked in a hospital. That being said, I do always approach this conversation knowing that most of the women that I work with, well, really all of them, they want to lose weight and also improve their health. And that's where this whole idea of like hot and healthy came from in my brand. But anyway, I bring that up because, independently of weight, there is an important aspect to nutrition just from a health perspective in managing our health, preventing chronic disease. And so when you're starting your day with a lot of processed sugar that, all sugar is sugar, but the sugar you're getting in fruit that also packs fiber is very different than the sugar that is potentially double the amount of sugar compared to that piece of fruit and like no fiber and like, they're just different foods, right? But anyway, when you're getting a lot of sugar in the morning and that typically paired with maybe having a meal beside it that, packs a lot of calories, doesn't have a lot of fiber, doesn't have a lot of protein, doesn't have a lot of anti-inflammatory nutrients in it, that is just not the most metabolically healthy meal. It's going to spike up your blood sugar. It can lead to overeating. It can lead to you craving more of those foods, which leads to then more overeating, more calories, and then the weight conversation begins because this is what leads to weight gain. So, independently of weight, there is a metabolic reason why it's really important to care about what you eat. But you can't talk about health without also talking about weight, because weight and health, as much as like the health at every size movement does try to separate them, there is a correlation between weight and health, and these topics aren't separate. These topics do go together. So, also for weight management, it is important to also be really conscious about how you're starting your day and really how you're eating every meal.
Yes, I love that. I think we even dive into each meal, but I just wanted to add a comment of like, I understand the struggles of not getting not knowing how to get that sugar out of your diet and protein into your diet and having those goal journeys of like, I want to gain weight. I want to lose weight. For myself, I wanted to get stronger because I'm a trainer and I want to feel strong. And I was like, why am I empowering my people to be strong, but I'm not even taking my own advice? I'm kind of cutting corners. So part of my journey was to get more protein in, start weightlifting, change my patterns of like the amount of cardio I was doing. I was cutting back. I needed to cut back on cardio because I was just running, not reaping the benefits or seeing the benefits of that. I was seeing a lot of no change, feeling really burnt out. And so it was all of the patterns put together that made it so that I'm the same weight that I was, but I am so much more muscle mass now. And this is unbelievable. I can't even say this. I work out almost less and not as hard as I've ever have in my whole life. And I feel better, look the best, and feel my strongest of my whole life. And truly it's because of people like you whose advice that I followed. And honestly, me needing to listen to myself. So from you, what can people do for like ideas? Because I hear a ton when people write in about, I don't have breakfast ideas of how to get like a good healthy breakfast and be full and get protein. Yep. I'd love to talk about like breakfast and lunch specifically.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about breakfast and lunch. I just have to say we literally have the same story, verbatim, because that story in college, I literally was doing all the things, all the hard work. It wasn't working, but we'll talk about that later.
Wait, I love that though. Okay, we need to bring it back up.
We will. But basically when it comes to this idea of waking up in the morning, having no idea what you need to be eating, feeling overwhelmed, not sure where to start. What I typically like to do with clients that I know sounds really crazy is I ask them, pretend you're not on a weight loss journey, pretend you're not on a fitness journey. What do you want? What does your diet look like? And I think you can kind of take this two ways. One approach is, okay, we see what you're eating now. And from there, we can look at what it's providing you nutritionally. Yes. So if you are eating cereal for breakfast and you are just having cereal and regular milk, okay, what if we took some banana or some fruit, I love a little blueberry on top of Cheerios kind of moment, and we try to go for more whole grain Cheerios instead of like the more maybe like processed, I don't know what it's called anymore, but like something that has whole grains in it for the cereal. Then you're going to do like an ultra filtered milk. And then that's a great way to get in more protein, especially if you don't like eggs. I get so many requests. People are like, don't give me an egg example. I will give an egg example, but you do something like that. And then maybe you're adding blueberries on top, like I mentioned before, to get that pop of color. You just elevated a basic breakfast meal, made it more fibrous and more protein rich, all great for your metabolism. That's one approach. So you basically take anything that your diet typically has now, and then you think about, okay, what does it need to be healthier to hit your goals? The second approach I often use with clients that I alluded to before and mentioned is just asking yourself what you want. Because I think a lot of times we overthink it. We're like, well, diet culture tells me I need to have a salad. And so you make this lame AF rabbit sized salad at home that is just not fun. And so I think asking yourself, what do you want? I find that really helpful for my clients, because then from there, we just think, okay, how can we make it healthier? The examples I always give clients is, say you love burgers. I get burger cravings sometimes. What if you bought the burger at the grocery store, you made it in your air fryer? Okay, you want French fries? Maybe we're not doing a bun, not because we can't have a bun, but we're just trying to be cognizant of the carbs. Maybe we have the burger bunless. We might make homemade French fries or sweet potato fries in the air fryer at home. It's so easy. It's so delicious. You can still have your ketchup. And then we're pairing like a side salad with it. Yes. So basically everything that you would have got at the fast food restaurant or anywhere, you're able to make that into a healthy, balanced meal. So I think if you have no idea where to start, that would be what I would suggest to start with. And the only other thing I would mention is for each meal, for every client, I always say, you're going to build up your repertoire as you go. But even if it's just one or two options for each meal, if you can nail down the nutrition, nail down what you need in those meals, then this will become easier. Then you can add another one and another one. And you're going to have this whole repertoire of easy to make recipes. But I really suggest starting small. Maybe it's just creating one sample day of eating, like a quote unquote like meal plan for yourself. Not that you have to eat it every day, but it's just like having the ideas in your brain so you're able to actually execute in the kitchen.
Well, it removes the pressure of it. It removes the need to think about it. I get the most stressed when I feel like, oh my God, I'm starving. I don't have anything in the fridge and I don't even know what to cook. Like that's when I started to panic. So it's crazy. One of my staple meals is a homemade burger, homemade fries, and a beet salad. No, I'm not joking. This is like, I post about it all the time too.
Yum.
It is
I
so
beets.
good. I love beets. It's a new thing. Pickled beets. Oh my God. If you're just being like snarking at those and you're thinking they taste like dirt, stop right now. Rethink what you're saying and try a beet because they're pickled and they're delicious. No, but it's true because I think we focus so much on, I have to change everything about what I do. I have to ditch the foods that I really, really enjoy. And just you talking about like upping what we already like I swapped a brand of yogurt that I'm not going to say out because the sugar on it was bonkers. I didn't even notice it until I looked a little closer when I got a different flavor. And I was getting like 30 grams of sugar right in my yogurt in a little, not even like a filling cup. So I swapped it for cottage cheese and I add honey and cinnamon and cookie granola butter or whatever it's called, cookie butter. And yes, you can have cookie butter in the morning. And yes, it's okay to add it to your food. And then a bunch of colorful veggies. I love how you talked about that because 2 questions. I'll start with this one first is I want to know, okay, if someone's saying, how do I build a balanced meal? What should they be looking at? I know we talked about actual foods and swapping things for this, for that, watching your calorie intake, but like maybe a rough estimate of like protein, carb, maybe watching for fat or sugar. You tell me.
Yeah. And I know, Sydney, we talked about this off air, but when it comes to calories and macros, obviously as a dietitian, I love to give the disclaimer that your specific needs, when I show like a day of eating or like what I'm eating, some people are like, well, how many exact grams of potatoes did you have on your plate? And I'm like, well, I can share that with you, but because you're asking that question, I'm actually concerned that you think you need the exact gram of potatoes that I'm having in this meal. I might be more hungry. I might be less hungry. So I'm going to give general recommendations, but obviously, some people might need more. If you lift weights and, 5 days a week versus, Susie listening to this who literally lifts 1 day a week, your protein needs are going to be different. But as a general rule of thumb for general fit, healthy, balanced eating for your metabolism and to feel your best and to look your best, I always say Okay, first off, you have to know your calories. So for your calories, and this goes into what you need at your meals, why I actually start off first talking about calories is a lot of women eat meals that are like 200 calories.
Mhm.
But then when you actually realize your body's nutritional needs, you're like, okay, I'm having 200 calories at breakfast, 200 calories at lunch, and like, I'm super hungry by dinner. Most women end up overeating at dinner. But then you really look at your total calories for the day and say it's like 1,600 or 1,800. You realize your meals are so small, and that's what's causing you to overeat at night, overeat the next day, overeat whenever you can, because you're not hitting your calories in the first place. So when building meals, it's really important to have at least a rough idea of what your body needs. You can listen to your body if you're, caught in diet culture. Sometimes those cues can be messed up. But I do, when I first start off working with clients, you figure out your budget, and then from there, we're going to determine how many meals and snacks you need, and that's going to determine how many calories you need in the meal.
Yes.
Other than that, though, in terms of what needs to be on your plate, I just like to keep it super simple for my clients. At most meals, emphasis on the word most, because I sometimes don't do this at breakfast, and neither do you have to as well. But most meals, we want to have a carb that preferably is a high fiber-centric carb. We can get into what that means if people are confused, but a carb, a protein, and a veggie.
Mm-hmm.
That is like the base of what your meal should be. If we want to get super specific about it, about half your plate non-starchy veggies, especially if you're in a fat loss or just honestly, even not in a fat loss phase, this is what I do.
Yeah.
Most meals, that's really great. A fourth your plate carb, a fourth your plate protein. And on a deeper level, specifically with protein, if you're brand new to this world and you are, learning portion sizes, around 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. I'd say as you get more advanced, it isn't uncommon to need around 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal. But yeah, as a general rule of thumb, a carb, a protein, a veggie, and hopefully I'm not making this too complicated for you guys, but I've also been known to say with the carb, the protein, and the veggie, sometimes I almost like to swap out the word veggie for a pop of color.
Yeah.
Sometimes at breakfast, for instance, I might not have a veggie. I'm not eating a salad at breakfast. I'm not that type of girl. I love a smoothie, but I really don't have them every single day, to be quite honest. So for me, I get my veggies in like lunch and dinner. Or I try to, right? So for breakfast, I might focus on having that pop of color instead of just having like toast and eggs, right? Which is something I do love. But that can be a really helpful mindset for a lot of people too. So it's like, how are you trying to get more color in, which equals produce, AKA fruits and veggies. So that way you're infusing that, healthfulness into your meals as well. But yeah, basically a carb, a protein, a veggie, know your calories, focus on having sufficient protein, and you guys will be rock solid.
I love this. And I love that you talk about depending on where you are in your journey. Like if you're just starting in this and you're just wanting to get into weightlifting, like don't rock the most amount of protein that you've ever seen in your whole entire life on every single plate of yours, and protein shakes and all of those things.
You're going to get the protein egg.
It's going to be bad. Okay. So just take it easy and follow Laura's guide with like how she broke it out, because it's exactly what I live by. It's what the trainers live by, that where I work. Like it's true. It's the truth of what actually works. My fiance actually is in a journey of like weight loss right now, and that he could publicly talk about it. I'm eventually going to have him talk about it too, but he's following verbatim these habits that you have, and he is seeing change. And he said to me yesterday, he goes, I feel better. I feel energized. I don't have to take a nap during the middle of the day, and I feel happier. And I'm like, that just like, it sends chills down your body. It's like, it can happen even when you feel like, no, I'm kind of stuck in my ways. It's like, no, I mean, give yourself a little power to make one simple change, even if it's just in your breakfast and lunch, and save dinner for another day. So making those simple changes are huge. Because we're talking about this, I want to talk about how people are focusing on the wrong things when they're doing their change in diet. And what do I mean by that? I mean about people worrying about condiments, or worrying about adding olive oil to their meal because, oh my gosh, olive oil is a fat. I would love to get your take on that conversation.
Oh yes. Immediately what came to mind when you said that was a topic that I post about a lot because I'm a big coffee girly, but this whole idea, like you can't have cream in your coffee. And it's so funny lately, I've been like loving cream in my coffee. So every time I do it, I literally think of social media and like the stuff I post. But
goodness.
Yeah, I really think in the weight loss space, these things can perhaps hold us back, right? A tablespoon of avocado oil, olive oil can pack 100 calories. You're slewing that all over your stir fry and you're like, I'm eating this healthy meal, and girl, it's healthy. It's amazing. But it could be high calorie. Healthy doesn't equal low calorie. And I think that's really part of this conversation. But yeah, I think people, I see this, not even I think, I know people, especially the women I work with, tend to focus on the wrong things, whether it's focusing on their weight instead of the habits that need to change for their weight to change. They focus on the, specific, I need to know the exact amount of magnesium in this meal or the exact amount of this, when it's like, okay, how many meals are you having per day? And what are the rough amount of calories you're having in those meals? I think sometimes we focus on like the micro details, and truthfully, I really think it's because of social media, because things on social media right now, it's not sometimes like I call them like the not sexy tips I give. What really does well and goes viral on social media right now is either fear-based tactics around nutrition and fitness, or really honing in on one specific thing, which is like, great. I love the videos that are like one tip to do this and that. But I think at the same time, social media has made us be like the one food that you really need to focus on. And like, typically it's not like protein. Like some of these are like a specific vitamin or mineral, or like one specific food they're like really highlighting. And once again, some of these videos can be really helpful, but I do think it's created this culture where we're focusing on these really specific things. And it's like you're missing the bigger picture of like the big boulders that are actually going to move your health and fitness in the right direction.
Yeah, the condiments are not going to be the thing that just, stops you dead in your tracks from moving forward. Granted, like you said, watch your intake of oils, especially because it just adds up, it just does. But don't be afraid of, the conversation around people being afraid of avocados because they're high in fat, and what's the other one that I heard the other day? Like not being able to use like a mayo. Like I use an avocado based mayo. I chose the healthier option,
I
right?
love mayo.
It's so good. I'm sorry. I'm going to make an aioli if I'm making fries. What I had to learn too was that that wasn't going to make or break my diet. That was not the make or break. It was the portion control and the larger habits of like a larger span of time, which I know you talk about calorie count over a week and how you don't break habits, which I think we should just like talk about. Cause I think this was one of my most exciting findings when I was looking at all of your content. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, praise all. Laura has a comment about not a day, but a larger span of time.
Yes, absolutely. With my method, I realized this really early on, and I'm sure you've seen this in the fitness space too, because I would literally, true story, I was working with women, my first job in private practice before opening up my own, and I was working with men too, and I would just realize all of my clients were focusing on the wrong things, like truly the wrong things. I was like, okay, it's not this one meal, and then, the classic situation where you eat one food bad or one meal bad or have one day bad, so it's like, well, F it, I might as well just eat the pizza to the face. I literally remember till this day, a client who shared with me, I literally ate a pizza to the face. Like this is a true story, guys. So what really transpired from all of this is I was like, I need a way to be able to teach my clients one day, one food, one meal. It doesn't matter. Like it's what you do next. And so that's where this whole idea of weekly calorie averages came into effect. And, I know there's like the zigzag calorie kind of diets. I actually never even heard of that. I never learned that in school. So I had no idea about it. But really what I do with my clients, at least that I find really helpful, and I talk about this a lot on social media, is, if you track your calories, you're going to, see how many you're having per day. And then what you have over the week, comparing that to where you need to be if your goal is weight loss or even maintenance, that can be really helpful to kind of paint the picture that one day in one meal, even 1 week, that doesn't define your journey. It's what you do over time. And, for context, if I ever give my clients like a calorie adjustment or, change anything about their plan, it's not after 1 week. I literally require my clients to show me 3 to 4 weeks of all of your habits, including your calorie averages. And then we're going to explore what is holding you back. And that's going to determine it. Maybe it's a calorie adjustment. Maybe it's actually tracking your calories right in the first place. Maybe it's eating more protein. Maybe it's more steps. Maybe it's, being consistent with exercise, because 1 week you're doing 1 workout, another week you're doing 5 workouts, and that impacts your nutritional needs. But yeah, 1 day, 1 week does not make or break this. Just like with fitness, right? You miss a workout, you miss a week of working out because you're on vacation, like you're not going to lose all your muscle.
No, that's not how it works. And It's hard and frustrating when people don't understand the concept because you hurt with them. You're like, no, you're okay. It's going to be okay. I promise there's a balance and you will find it. I also hear quite a bit with talking about balance and talking about not just a day, people talking about weekend guilt because they know they're going to crack over the weekend. And I would love for you to talk about just like what to keep in mind, maybe things to keep in mind for your larger goals and how to apply them, or just like, is it really a thing we need to be that obsessed with?
Yeah, I really think it depends on the person. And I know that's like the most annoying dietitian answer, but it really does, because I have clients that it's not the weekday that's the problem. It is the weekend. The weekend, they're losing control. They have an all or nothing mindset. They're so clean during the week. And in fact, what they do during the week, they're actually too restrictive, which is causing binging over the weekend. So I think actually enacting more balance, having more consistency day to day. And I actually have a quote I use with clients where I say, I want you to bring that weekday energy into the weekend.
Yes.
Like, we do need structure. It can look different. Maybe your meal timings and your foods are different. Maybe one of those days you're not tracking your calories, if that's something that you do. Not that you have to track your calories, by the way, guys. I don't track mine, but for my clients, for context, they do. But yeah, I think sometimes the weekends are something we have to address because it can absolutely sabotage you. But I also think sometimes when we're putting too much pressure on fun foods and the weekend, it also kind of creates a negative relationship to dieting and not even dieting, but like being healthy in the first place. Like, I always come at this conversation with the perspective of, I want my clients, just like myself, and I want all women to be able to enjoy food. So we need to consider your lifestyle as we are enacting any change in your diet. For myself, I'm not going to not go out to eat. Like, that's something I love to do. But I think it's knowing, okay, if your goal is fat loss, you can't be going out to eat every single meal. You do have to eat more at home. So, a swap for me is I use during the week to eat more at home. If I know I'm going to a really fun dinner out or I have something out, I'm focusing on, okay, how can I have more on-track meals, even if I'm going out to eat? And then maybe there is a food that's really worth it. I call it like worth it meals or worth it food. So, if I'm going out to a really fancy restaurant or a cool restaurant here in LA, that's probably not the time where I'm like, okay, I'm going to eat this perfect meal that's like plain and, really low calorie. No, that's probably the more fun meal. And it's like, it's knowing when to kind of push and pull, like pull the lever or like bring it back a little bit. We kind of have to learn that dance. And actually, this really relates to fitness, Sydney, and I think you'll like this. It's sort of like with training. I think sometimes we get in these ruts, or at least I hear with my clients, where it's like, my trainer said I have to, work out this day. This is my rest day. But it's like, there's a little bit, like, you also have to trust your body a little bit. Like, sometimes you can push yourself a little more. Sometimes you need to listen to your body. And even if it says work out on your calendar, we're going to move those workouts and do another day. And I think the same concept actually applies to nutrition with the weekends.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's absolutely accurate. It's the pull. You're using the lever, which I really appreciate, because it's like, you have to but I mean, it's a push and a pull versus a complete, like, oh my God, I'm not going to eat because I have that meal coming. No. Or I'm only going to eat the salad or whatever. It's more like intuition and intuitive eating, which I know we all talk about. It's kind of like a buzzword at this point right now, but it really is about like, okay, if I know that when I go to this amazing place in Minnesota that's called Porzana, it's new downtown, I want to have a steak. I'm going to get fries. I'm going to get all these things. I'm going to get the dessert. I know I'm having a big meal, so maybe I'm going to go a little bit heavier on my protein in the morning to keep me full longer. And then I might have more of a protein, and I'll make sure to get my veggies in because I'm probably going to get most of my carbs in at night. So I'm just going to try to go a little heavier in the veggies. It's not unbalanced. It's not because I'm wanting to restrict. It's just knowing what I'm going to get in towards the end of the day to know what I'm going to eat during the day. Again, like if I do during the week. It's not that any meal is a bad meal, just like no meal is a bad workout. I try to stay away from the good and the bad. It's the pulling and the pushing of the lever that will make you more well-rounded balance. It's not a day, it's a length of time. I just love everything you're saying is like what I preach. Like when I taught this morning, I was like, yes, these are the habits. And one thing I would love your take on, because we're in the holidays, I'm like, we're in the holidays, and people, a lot of the times I hear this in fitness, people talking about how you got to work off your meal. You got to work out to work off your, I mean, I hear it even in classes I go to, right? So I'm always helping my community out. But what, as a registered dietitian. What is your take on this?
Sydney, you're my favorite trainer now because you're asking this question. I hope 2024 is the year that trainers stop saying that to people. And I also hope nutritionists stop saying that to people, because that's still like both categories are not doing so well in that world. But yeah, I think sometimes when I answer this question for clients, that is the way I want to answer it right now, is when you actually think about your metabolism, your workout burn and like that calorie burn really isn't as much as we think it is. Your RMR, which is your resting metabolic rate, BMR also is kind of interchangeable with that. We can talk about that another day. But basically your baseline metabolism before we add in exercise and the calories it takes to break down food and, these various different things, that is far bigger than workout calories, which is why you could actually not work out and lose weight. So I love working out. We could talk about it for days. Absolutely, me and Sydney. But at the same time, when we have this whole idea, like you have to earn your food by working out, it is just so inherently flawed, because we earn food by being a human with our metabolism. Now, with food guilt, different kind of aspect to this with the holidays, I used to be of the camp, in the dieting camp, where I felt very guilty if I didn't get in my workout. And I get it. I get the mental kind of aspect to it. Working out makes me feel good. It does allow you to eat more food. It can definitely make your calorie budget bigger. Like, these are all really great, things with working out. But at the same time, we don't want to become dependent on working out, and our working out shouldn't determine our food choices, because in fact, that can sabotage you. Yes. The amount of women, just like Sydney's story here, which is very similar to mine, where I work out less now, way less intense as well. Mm-hmm. And I'm able to still have the foods I love and I see more progress. I mean, that's crazy. And that's because working out sometimes for some people, it almost gives you the green light to overeat, to have that extra slice of cake too. Yeah. Feel like you've earned the indulgence, but maybe that's the thing that's actually getting you off track. And it's not the working out itself, it's your relationship to what you think working out is doing for your body.
Oh my God, I love that you say this. Our stories are so parallel. It's kind of insane, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I understand this. And I even, back in the day, thinking back, I was playing lacrosse in college, and I was running all the time. And so I thought, my metabolism wasn't going to change. And I was drinking a lot in college, just going out like a college student does at certain points. Some people do, I should say. And I was eating Toppers pizza and Stouffer's lasagnas and chicken tenders for meals. I mean, I wasn't getting any veggies, any other well-rounded piece in. I was binging because I thought my metabolism wouldn't change. And I had to learn a new relationship with food and what working out actually served me, right? I didn't want to work out to literally put myself into a hole where I felt, oh my God, I'm fully overexerted every single day, because I felt that in college and I didn't want to do it anymore. I also knew intuitively that wasn't going to serve the larger picture of my body. My body was not going to last and outlast the way that I was working out, like way back when, like running hard, my knees would kill, my shin splints would kill, my ankles would kill, and not feeling muscular strong. Like, I needed to learn more functional training, which was actually going to help me bend. And why was I an athlete, but when I bent over, my back was killing me. And I felt, I gained weight. It's just like things didn't make sense. And I think when you sit and you think so much more intuitively and you take all the pieces that you've learned and you take a breath, you can actually piece together a really strong plan. One of the write-ins that I know we kind of very briefly talked about metabolism, but someone talked about the changing of metabolism as you age. And that's a real thing. I would love your perspective on that and how we kind of not combat it, because it's inevitable, but just are mentally prepared for it and that we might see change.
Yeah. I actually just did a deep dive on this topic. So I feel like when you told me someone wrote in about this, I was like, this is really exciting, because I feel very up to date with all of this. So what's really interesting is I kind of was of the camp when I was younger, especially before I was a dietitian, that there is an inevitable weight gain that happens when we're older, and, we're just screwed as we get older. That basically is the mindset I had, like many women have.
Yep.
Now, what's really interesting that I do want to acknowledge is research actually shows that our metabolism, in terms of our calorie burn, does not change. I repeat, does not change as significantly as what we think.
Wow.
Our metabolism doesn't change in a way where, every year or every, 5 years, we're just inevitably going to gain 10 pounds on the scale. That is not true. However, what causes this conversation of like metabolism changes, the truth behind it is as we get older, our body composition does change.
Mm-hmm.
We begin to lose muscle mass and we begin to put on more fat. And then, of course, the whole conversation, especially for females, is with hormonal changes, especially around menopause. Plus, we have the whole idea of like having babies and like,
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
our lives change as we get older and that impacts our habits. So things do change. If you took a 20-year-old client and then followed her until she's 40 and 50, I know because I work with women of these different age groups, I know the body does change, but it's not this inevitable you can't do anything about it. It's more about, okay, your composition is changing. And so are you feeding your body and moving your body and also taking care of your body with like sleep and stress management? And are you being on the cusp and like on the cusp of what needs to change there? And what I mean by this is, okay, as we get older, we know we lose muscle mass and we know we typically gain fat mass. So our weight sometimes might even not change, but we will look like we gained weight.
Yep.
So what needs to happen there is, okay, with food, we need to make sure we're managing our blood sugar. We need to make sure we are eating sufficient protein. We need to make sure we're eating according to our body's nutritional needs. On the exercise front, protein paired with strength training, that's going to help you build, if not just maintain, build muscle mass. So you're not a victim to this inevitable change that happens to our body composition. Staying active is really important as well. And there's just so many other deeper things like, when you lose muscle mass, it puts you, at risk for diabetes and chronic disease and things like that, which can play into this whole, metabolic change that happens as well. So, it's not as simple as you just get older and your metabolism slows, but it's more about, are you doing the right things to kind of prevent these things from happening? Because if you don't do these things, yes, you will feel like everything is slowing down. You will feel like your body is changing because it is changing because you are getting older. I mean, you're not as efficient at things.
It's inevitable. And I think what I hear from you too is like, just make a habit. It's about making habits now and like learning about your body and like, if you can't avoid the inevitable, like just start building habits that are well-rounded. If I've had this idea of that for like years now about how we're so obsessed with external, we're not obsessed with our internal. And one of my clients actually today, who I was coaching this morning, said, why are we so obsessed with our hair and she said hands, like nails, when we're not obsessed with our heart health? And I was like, oh my God, Linda, preach, because it's so true. It's like,
win a Nobel Prize.
Like seriously, I'm like, that is so good. I'm like, oh my God, I want to write that down and preach it to everybody, because it's really, it's about the insides. We're so focused on social media. We're so focused on everything going around us and how we can have this and that, or how we don't have this and that makes us sad. It's like, bottom line is our health will decline over time, but we are in control if we have really, really strong habits. Like truly, truly, I appreciate you saying that so much. I wanted one more write-in, and then I want to ask you two more questions around dieting and fads, and then like just 5 takeaway habits that people can walk away with. A lot of my listeners also wrote in about how to work away from like active cravings and crave eatings and having this like food addiction. We talked about meals. We talked about protein, obviously keeping you fuller for longer, but like, what would you say to somebody who's afraid that they're just addicted to eating, and maybe it is stress eating, maybe it is something related to mental health?
Yeah, my first gut visceral reaction is, what is the root cause of the overeating and the binging that's happening? Now, I do have experience in eating disorders, but I'm certainly not like super up to date on eating disorders. So, binge eating disorder is a very real thing. I don't really see and cope with that with clients. It's more people who struggle with like binging and overeating, not so much like the DSM. I'm not diagnosing anyone. I'm not a physician, but at the end of the day, overeating and binging is something you see a lot with people who struggle with dieting and their weight. And what the approach that I always take, and I know a lot of the dietitians on my staff take as well that specialize in this area, is, okay, what is causing it? Is it you're not eating enough? Boom, we start to eat more. It could literally be resolved in a day. Is it you're not eating the right types of foods? You might be eating the right amount of calories, but it's not a lot of volume of food. So we need to focus on building more balanced meals, getting in more volume there through fiber. Maybe it's not having enough protein. Maybe it's not enough carbs in your meals. That actually is a big thing I see with a lot of women. They're like, eating really low calorie, small portions, and you think, they're eating healthy foods, but they're actually eating a very low amount of carbs. So it's impacting their fiber intake, it's impacting their satiety and their fullness, and they're super active and they need more carbs to support their activity. So that can be a whole thing too. A big issue for a lot of women that actually is a core, I think a really core reason why a lot of women struggle with binging is I feel like emotional regulation, but also, I'll be really blunt, like y'all need to go to therapy. Like people need to go to therapy. People need to explore their traumas, what is impacting them. I know personally in my life, when I struggle with overeating, it has been through times where I am literally going to food because I have uncomfortable thoughts, uncomfortable feelings. I'm not addressing what actually is bothering me. And I think a lot of times too, that paired with like not prioritizing yourself, that is a huge theme I see with women where you are putting your work on a pedestal. You are burnt out. You are, taking care of your family. There's all these other various stressors from parents to kids to family members. Like you're doing things for everyone in your life but yourself. And that can be a big part of binging and overeating because you're not taking care of yourself. So I think whether it's, this emotional stuff, maybe you need a little therapy moment, maybe explore, or maybe it's not therapy, maybe it's just journaling. I think journaling can be huge just to, really give yourself the pause, like you said, the pause to be like, okay, Sydney, what is going on? How do I feel? What is up? So I think therapy, the emotional stuff, taking time for yourself, caring for yourself. And then of course, on the nutrition front, are you eating enough and are you eating enough of the right types of foods can be easy solutions for this problem as well.
100%. I just love hearing it from you too, because I think a lot of people can hear these things from other people, but hearing it from somebody who is educated in this area, it's almost like reassuring that, oh, wait, I don't just have a problem. I need to go figure out what the root of this problem is and why I'm turning to maybe food. And, some people turn to their phone, like binge scrolling on TikTok, or they turn to different things like that. Yes. So it's all a real thing. It just sometimes we've got different things that are our guilty pleasure that we turn to when we're upset about something. So just recognize the things that are going on in your body and your mind and all of that. I love that.
So I know you love habits. And actually, as I'm sitting here, something I have a harsh conversation with clients about, not a harsh, but like it's a intense conversation about is yes, binging and overeating can be, we got to explore the root problem. But I also think for people, and I can vividly talk about this in my life, sometimes overeating is a habit. Mm-hmm. It truly is a habit. Mm-hmm. I like to sit down in front of the TV, have a big bowl of ice cream. I love some chips. Like if you love food and you're a foodie, like overeating is going to be really freaking fun. Right. So I think sometimes we like don't want to talk about that, like as it being a habit, but sometimes it isn't as like deep and emotional as like you're going through some traumatic PTSD moment in your life. Sometimes it's literally, you need to audit your habits and really think about the version of yourself that's 10, 20, 30 pounds down, that feels good, has high energy, is the most successful in her career, or whatever explanation you want to do, a description you want to do. Is she doing that on the couch every single day? And what would this new version of yourself be doing instead? I know you love habits, so I wanted to mention that as well.
No, I absolutely love that so much because it sometimes is just a bad habit. I mean, we get caught in it, like thinking that a pint is a serving size, or, when you're watching TV, you're not thinking intuitively about eating. You're thinking intuitively about your TV that you're watching and really taking in the channel or the show that you've been binging, like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. That's me. So portioning it out prior to, not bringing the bag, bringing like a plate full of something that seems reasonable would help. I also love to think about, for instance, when I find myself overeating at a restaurant because I'm overly excited to be out to eat, because I'm also a foodie. I love going out to eat. I remember, as someone who has got a little bit of a gluten intolerance and a lot of it of a dairy intolerance, how do I feel when I'm leaving that restaurant and my stomach is bloated out over my pants, like to the point I'm uncomfortable, I can't sleep, I have to use the restroom multiple times in the middle of the night. Like, it's like I get excited, I overdo it. And then I learn again. I'm like, oh, why'd I do that again? So it's just catching yourself before you make similar patterned mistakes and habits again. And it's okay to do it once in a while. It's okay to do it in general, but just catching it is going to help you further down the road. So I love that you thought about that and talked about that seriously. This is my last larger grouping of topics because I had a few people write in, and I call these diets and fads, and I would love your opinion on them. Some of which I've got different opinions on, but just in your position, I would love to know what you think about 75 hard for one of them, and then also juicing in general. I got multiple write-ins for multiple of those, and just would love your point of view.
I think for some people, I've never done 75 hard. For me, being too rigid just doesn't work for my personality anymore. It's funny, I could be so restrictive in college, but I just don't have the mental capacity for that, especially as I enter this new phase of my life. So, if it worked, I think it could work for a young 20-year-old. I don't think it could work for moms who also run a company. Probably not the best program for them, but I think Dana White created, or not Dana White, someone else.
Yeah. What's the name?
What's his name? From First Form, the First Form
yes,
guy. I know he
like,
created it. I know it's bothering me. I'm like, who's Dana White UFC? That's not the same guy. Anyway, my view of 75 hard is it's a little intense. There are easier ways, I think, to get to the goals. The purpose of it to get more active and commit yourself, I love that. But I do think the fact that it is very cookie cutter, it isn't personalized. It's a challenge that I think some people might fail. And honestly, also isn't necessarily what everyone needs to do. I mean, I work with women who've macro tracked forever, that love structure. Perhaps that might work for them. I've worked with women that literally cannot even get themselves to make one meal at home throughout the week because that's so overwhelming to them because they're a beginner, where that would be the last thing on the planet Earth I would ever recommend for them. So I really just take the approach as a dietitian. You have to not just address the root problem, but you really have to know your weight loss personality. I literally make my clients take a quiz to figure out their weight loss personality before they begin the program or before they begin any sort of change. So you can understand, are you an all or nothing mindset dieter? For you, 75 hard, I absolutely wouldn't do something like that. If you thrive on structure, you're more of what I call the businesswoman. Perhaps 75 hard might work for you, but also it brings up the conversation of it working. A diet doesn't work. You have to hit what you need to hit for your body's nutritional needs for it to freaking work. So 75 hard could work, but it's not because it's 75 hard. It's because you're moving more and you're eating in a calorie deficit. That's why you're losing weight.
Yes. And maintaining it is the problem that I have after. It's the same thing. Well, first of all, juicing is a flag for me. I mean, I can understand having a juice. A lot of times juices are really high in sugar, so you got to be careful. It kind of looks the same as a really, really sugary coffee at times. Juicing, I mean, you're restricting, but you're still getting sugar in. So really it's just as if you ate some donuts or something else. So that's my opinion on that. But for the 75 hard thing, I think it's a great habit builder if it's done correctly. The problem is like you said, when things are so rigid or your success is hitting the 75th day, you're then immediately set up for failure because it's not about maintaining. It's about getting to the 75th day, saying you did it, and then being done. And that's the problem is it's not necessarily in every instance teaching you a habit. It's more so teaching you to be rigid for 75 days and then, oh God, go binge it up. It's tough for me to say, yay, stamp of approval or nay on that one.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned maintenance because maintenance is I always am thinking of maintenance with my clients too. And honestly, 75 hard gives me very much Whole30 vibes, which I know I'm very outspoken about Whole30, where it's you're going to do this for 30 days. The amount of clients that I've had do Whole30 30 times, literally 10, 20, 30 times because they keep failing after. And it's if you're not going to actually change your habits, you're learning how to diet. You're not learning how to actually live your life. But I will say, because I didn't answer the juicing question, I'll be really blunt. I don't like juicing. If you want to have a juice, you go, girlfriend. But juicing for weight loss, you're not getting protein. You're not getting fiber. You're eating so under your calories. And it gets at this idea you can jumpstart or hack your way out of the hard work. Nah, girl, you can't. A juice, it honestly is going to set you back. It's going to set you back so much further. Yeah, it does not get my stamp of approval. But you can drink a juice. I love a little juice.
I love a juice bar. I love my mom's juice that she makes me, especially when I'm not feeling well and I've got a turmeric horrible cayenne shot going down my throat and I'm coughing it up because my mom's like, this is good for you. And it does help actually for me,
Good.
catapult me into healthiness. But I really appreciate your point of view on both of those things. The last question someone had brought up was bad food combinations, if that's such a thing. That's my last question for write-ins that I think we should discuss.
Yeah. So I actually became more aware of like this whole combination thing. I feel like when the fad was really big, I didn't pay super close attention to it because my clients weren't talking about it. But yeah, it came up in my world. Maybe it's because it's LA that I live in now, and that's what people like to talk about. But yeah, this whole idea, you can't have, specifically with the food combination diet, you can't have this a carb with a protein or a carb with a fat. I completely disagree. Sorry. I completely disagree with this BS because there is no science to back up that your body can't handle having multiple macros at once. Absolutely not. In fact, for blood sugar management, I would love a meal that has carbs, proteins, and fats in it. So without going too deep into that conversation, no, it does not get my stamp of approval. I think finding the right combinations of foods in the right portions is incredibly important. But this whole idea, you can't have food at the same time, no, absolutely not. Plus, can I just myth bust this with the fact that let's consider a food like milk. Milk has carbs. A lot of people don't realize milk has a lot of carbs. If you're a diabetic, you would know that because it has a lot of sugar that can impact your blood sugar. Milk has carbs. Milk has protein. And if you're having a full fat, whole milk moment, it's going to have fat too. That one food has all the different macros in it. Many foods have all the different macros in it in different combinations. So that literally dispels that because, you can't just separate foods into just carbs, just proteins, just fats. They all have a whole variety of the macros in them in the first place.
Amen to all of that. Amen to all of that. I think people need to hear it though. I really do. It's because you hear so much again, you sometimes we're hearing it from people and leaders in the social media industry that are saying all these pieces of information. And sometimes it's not coming from somebody who's done the backing and the research or having a degree in it. I'm not saying you have to have a degree to spew this information, but you have to be careful who you're talking to and what you're telling people, especially when you have a platform. So I'll get off my soapbox with that one, but I really appreciate you answering all of those write-ins because I'm I have my opinion on these things. I had a feeling we would agree on all things, but of course we did. And it just felt so, it's almost reassuring to me too, because I don't have a master's, and it's reassuring to what information I share based to my clients too, and to my people. So thank you for that. I have 2 listener write-ins. So we have a segment called Call Sid, and people either call in or they write in and they ask advice. And 2 of these had come in about a week ago, and I would love for you and I to respond to them. And then we'll get everybody out of here. Cause I'm you and I could talk for days, I think, on end. This one is titled, I would just like a little bit of advice on weight loss motivation and how to break the disordered eating thoughts. So it says, I started my health and weight loss journey back on the 9th of January this year with an aim to lose 70 pounds. My starting weight was 214 pounds. I went in hard, stopped smoking and drinking, cut 80% of carbs, and started walking every day, eventually up to 4 miles every morning before work. I lost 28 pounds on my 30th birthday in May, which was my initial goal. I was so proud of myself. But May was when my hay fever allergies started, and this year it brought up some additional health concerns that stopped me from walking. My allergies have subsided now, and I feel somewhat normal again. However, my motivation is non-existent. It doesn't help that it's cold and dark out and raining every day in the UK. And the moment, so I'm getting up at 5 to go walking. It's literally the last thing I want to go do. I'm back in my deficit full time as of 2 weeks ago, and I've lost 4 pounds again in that time, taking my total loss at 38 pounds. I just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I've still got 32 pounds left to lose, and the thought terrifies me that I'm only just halfway through, and it's taken me a year. I thought I'd get to my end goal by now. And then it says she wants to lose the remaining 32 pounds by her 31st birthday because she doesn't feel like she wants to keep being consumed by her weight. She just wondered if we have any tips or tricks that could help her push to her goals.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have 2 initial thoughts. First off, if there's something I've learned helping women on bigger weight loss journeys, I'm talking anywhere from 20 or more pounds, even 20, I consider big, honestly. But especially for my women who have lost 50 to 100 pounds, is you must get rid of the timeline, because the initial weight loss you see is going to be faster. And from a scientific perspective, you have more body mass to lose. So you're able to lose more weight per week. It's going to come off a lot easier. As you get closer and closer to your goal, you have less body fat percentage to be able to lose. So your weekly weight loss rate is going to go down. Plus just all of the changes. You have to adapt your plan as you go. The plan you have day one is not going to be the plan that's going to get you to 70 pounds down. There's going to be tweaks and adjustments, maybe 10, 15 pounds every, 10 or 15 pounds that happens. So I am such a believer. I've had clients where in coaching, it takes them a year to lose 25 pounds. And for some people, they're like, that is so incredibly slow, but it's not about the speed at which you lose the weight. It's how you lose the weight and your ability to keep it off. The second thing I was going to mention before, Sydney, I want to hear your thoughts too, is around the fun factor. I think when you are on a fitness journey and you're just a slave to the scale, you're focusing on what it is, you're thinking about how far away you are. I'm going to be really blunt. Like, that's not the point of this. I know you want to lose the weight. I know you're focusing on how bad you feel and how you're just going to feel better when you lose the weight. But something that I do think you will feel better when you lose the weight for the right reasons. But being 30 pounds lighter doesn't necessarily mean you're going to feel happier and confident in your body. And so what we need to really get this woman's mindset into is like, how can you feel confident and happy, but more importantly, like, make this journey fun. So you're sticking to it regardless of what the scale is showing you tomorrow or today. Like, you are doing this because you obviously have these goals and you're thinking about who you want to become and who you are becoming, but you're also just like loving the process along the way. And so when I hear like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, my first gut instinct as a coach is, what do you want to do? What excites you? What do you want to eat? How do you want to move your body? How can we find the fun factor in all of your journey so this becomes something positive for you? That's what I would say, at least.
Oh, I love that. All of that. All of that I agree with. All of it. You have to enjoy the journey. You have to be happy with where you are right in the moment, because you'll obsess, like that sounds like, in a way, and having that timeline goal can be really harmful. It makes you feel like, if you don't hit whatever goal, if you're trying to lose it in X amount of days and you're halfway through and you're not at halfway to your goal, which wouldn't equate to the same amount of weight loss at that point anyway, you're not winning. And that's going to disappoint you, even though your journey, you've probably already lost 10 to 15 pounds or whatever it is. So that's a lot of what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that you need to change up your routine. Like, if walking is not making you happy, it's actually making you feel depressed because of the weather in the UK and weather, frankly, in the Midwest up here. You need to change what you're doing. Like, it's got to be something else. Maybe you try walking on a treadmill inside. Maybe it's a different time of the day. Maybe it's lunch that you move your body. Maybe it's a class. Maybe it's not the treadmill solo time because you're not enjoying it anymore. Like, it's about changing and adapting, and also, like you said, being happy with where you are in the journey. Otherwise, you will harm your thought process and you won't feel satisfied even probably when you get close to the finish line. It's a mindset.
I completely agree with that.
I hurt with these people too. And sometimes when I'm reading these, I'm like, oh, it makes me bummed, you guys. Like, you guys, your listeners, you guys are amazing. I love you. I appreciate you writing in and being honest. I have one more. And this one says, "Hi, Sid. I unfortunately have suffered from the freshman 15 and have gained some weight and just overall really struggling with my body image. I'm not only struggling with my body image, but just generally want to be better for myself and treat my body better. With that being said, I wanted to start going back to the gym and being more active, but every time I attempt, I struggle really bad. I feel like everyone is judging me, or honestly just don't even really know where to begin or what to do when I go to the gym. Any advice on planning workouts, making time for food when you've never really had any previous background in it and not caring what other people think would be greatly appreciated." And I'm going to have an episode about working out and making a different style of fitness routine with a friend of mine who's a top trainer at Lifetime, which I'm so excited about. But we can talk about the food aspect and the confidence aspect. I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think when you don't know what you need to do, it's going to lead you, especially when you're in college and like you're learning so much, like you're craving knowing what to do. And you're feeling this anxiety. Like whenever I have anxiety about something, it typically is because it's like the unknown. And it isn't just the unknown. It's like when you're about to give a presentation and you don't know what the hell you're going to say, you didn't prep, you're going to be so anxious versus like if you prepped ahead of time and you have confidence, you're going to feel really good. So I'd say from the food perspective, I do have to be honest. Knowing I gained 20 pounds my freshman year of college, and I don't want this young woman to do the same things that I did, it is important to have a strong understanding about what you need to change in your diet. And I don't want you to just aimlessly try things. I think sometimes we're like, well, just get moving. Like that can be great advice, but like with nutrition, I am a little conscious with that. General advice like add in more veggies, add in more protein, like that can be really great advice. But ultimately, we need to understand what your diet looks like now and really start from there. And so I'd say if you have no idea where to start, depending on if you're in your dorm and if you can even cook. I am the queen of cooking in my sorority house for 2 years and in my dorm room. So I get it, girls. But I really think thinking about the two things you can control, which is one, how can you start to cook more meals at home if that's possible for you? Or if you are out to eat, how can you become a little bit more conscious about what types of foods you're ordering? That doesn't even mean knowing the nutrition facts and calories. It's thinking about, okay, what is on my plate and is that hitting that carb, protein, and veggie component? I think that's where I would start off if I was this woman. But I do think whether it's a coaching program or even something smaller, like even just reading a book, if you have a Kindle, get a nutrition book from someone you can trust, and or even like maybe joining like one of those small little like memberships or something. Like being able to just learn more about nutrition is really going to help you, because you don't need some crazy expensive thing to become fit and improve your diet. It's making these really small tweaks to what you do now. Absolutely.
You're hitting on everything I would do, to be honest with you. Like everything I would do and suggest, right? Like, cause it's like, you don't have to be perfect. You're probably not going to be able to be perfect in the dorms, and there's no such thing anyway. So just have a better understanding of what's going on your plate. Maybe trying to, like you said, more veggies, more protein, having a balanced carbs and not cutting carbs. Like don't be so drastic in your change. If you're like, crap, I got the freshman 15, it's salad time, baby, until I see a change. It's not going to work like that. It's not going to be balanced. Joining some sort of program, maybe even following someone. There's a few people online that I really like that I think have a great information and teach you how to lift. One being Whitney Simmons. She's like my end all be all, like how she trains. Whitney. Love her. Love that she talks about psoriasis too, which is, I also have psoriasis. So I'm like, amen to that. But just like finding somebody that can give you some information, starting basic, even Googling or AIing basic strength training workout. I mean, you have all these resources at your fingertips. You've got to get the mindset right, because then it'll take you out of your rut and you can move forward. We can't go backwards. We got to go forward. So that would be my advice. And stay tuned for the episode where we talk about actual training pieces. And I can really lean into that. And we have a whole episode coming on it. So we'll talk and dive deep into it. Lauren, I am so embarrassed. You want to know why? I was calling you Laura because I had emailed my coworker, Laura, and then I could only see my little piece right there. And I'm like, oh, it's Laura. Like I typed in Laura and Lauren came up. I'm like, oh my God, I've been calling you Laura this whole time. I can't even believe that. You're like, who is this lady and why does she not know me?
Oh my God, Cindy, it happens to me all the time at Starbucks. You are more than good. Well, I didn't even notice.
I'm like, I should know better. I'm like, I know your name and I'm still like, Laura. Like, no, ma'am, this is Lauren. I'm a struggle bus right now. So everyone ignore me. I was up at 5 this morning coaching. So help me. Lauren, I so appreciate the conversation. You are so well spoken. And I also just love all of your insights and advice. And I know my listeners are going to be so excited to have this conversation at their fingertips. But tell everybody where they can find you, where they can get support if they are looking for that, whatever it is that they're looking for.
Yeah. So it's super easy. You can find me at The Sorority Nutritionist, or Sorority Nutritionist rather. My website is The Sorority Nutritionist, but on Instagram and TikTok, if you type in Sorority Nutritionist, which I've said it way too many times now, you'll be able to find me. And yes, my name is Lauren Hubert. So that's the name you'll see pop up there. You can't miss me, my blonde hair. And sometimes I do some funny little dance moves. So you'll see me.
I love it. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for having this conversation. I'm so excited. Everybody at Well Said Podcast, remember, like, rate, review, do all the things if you can. I appreciate you. And always let me know what you think of these episodes. I leave polls on Spotify. So it's kind of a little temptation for you to go over there and vote on it and comment on it. Let me know what you think. You can always call me, text me at 612-470-7569 for all the questions you have. If you've got more, we might end up having Lauren back. So it might be necessary if we missed a bunch of things. We could talk for days. So appreciate you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening and bye-bye.